Well, I'm here, Jay Heckmare said as he arrived at his cousin's house. He was spending some time at his cousin's in an effort to get away from his hectic job. Jay wasn't married and he thought it was nice to just get away and spend time with family. Jay was a man in his late 30s, about 5'10" and 170 pounds. He had short brown hair that was slightly receding, as is the case with many men his age. Jay considered himself okay looking, but he was being a bit hard on himself, not that it mattered. He had never gotten married. And didn't plan on it, marriage just wasn't for him. He was a confirmed bachelor, as they were called. He had several girlfriends throughout his life, but nothing very serious by his own design. He would cut his vacation short to take out his latest girlfriend this Friday night. Jay had decided to spend the time with his cousin, Marcia Lyles. Marcia was the daughter of his mother's sister. She was a pretty woman about 2 or 3 years younger than Jay. Marcia had blonde shoulder-length hair with much darker roots that was parted in the middle. She was 5'5", a height that she thought was adequate enough to not need heels on a daily basis. She was a hard-working person who has had jobs since she was in her early teens, but still kept time for her family. She had been married to Jimmy for 18 years and they had 3 children. Their oldest was a 16-year-old boy named Dylan. Dylan was a thin boy who has about his father's height of 5'8". He had dark brown straight hair. It was probably the original color of his mother's, if she would let her roots grow out. Dylan was a nice enough boy, Jay thought, but he could get moody. On the times when Jay offered to help the boy with his schoolwork, the boy would say he already knew it all and refused to study with Jay. But eventually the boy would calm down, and once working he would stay on track until they were done. Jay was impressed that distractions like phone calls and texts didn't sidetrack the boy once studying had finally started. Marcia also had 2 girls, Julianne and Sophia. Julianne was a vivacious 11-year-old and Sophia was a cute 4-year-old. Julianne had brown hair like the rest of the family. It wasn't as dark as Dylan's, but it was also much longer, extending to but not touching her shoulders. Sophia was the only one in the family whose brown hair was curly. Jay, who was now a computer programmer, had spent several years teaching high school. Marcia had asked him to help Dylan with a state exam he was taking the next day. Jay was happy to help his cousins out, especially since they were being so nice to let him stay the entire week. But when Jay got there, Dylan insisted that he already knew all the stuff. "Look, I am here. Let me help you," Jay implored. "I don't need your help. I don't need anyone's help, I know it all." Jay had downloaded an old exam from the state's website. His plan was to have Dylan to do the test and then go over it with him. But Dylan wasn't having it. After some intense discussion, shouting, Dylan left the room. It was about 2:30 and Jimmy, who was home with a bad cold, went to pick up Julianne from school. Jay went along since forcing Dylan to work wasn't going to happen. "So, why aren't you at work?" Jay asked. "I have had this cough for weeks now. I just couldn't breathe. I went to the doctor instead today. If you're sick, don't get me sick. It's not catching." "How do you know?" "The doctor said so." "How did you get it?" "I got it from Julianne a few weeks ago." "I thought you said it isn't catching." "It isn't." Jimmy pulled into the school grounds and the two waited for Julianne to get out. It didn't take too long. Julianne got into the back seat. At the high school, the students only came in for midterms, but for the elementary school where Julianne was in the 5th grade it was a regular day. "How was your day?" Jimmy asked. "It was okay, I guess." Jay and Jimmy returned to their discussion of Jimmy's cold and that Jay didn't want to get it. While they were discussing it, Julianne told them, "I don't know if Mommy told you, but Mommy's doctor said she has something that makes her repeat herself." "Repeat herself?" inquired Jay. Yeah, she keeps telling me the same thing over and over. Oh, she does? Yeah. Jay didn't know what Julianne had heard at Marcia's doctor's office, but Jay knew that moms telling their kids over and over to do something wasn't any disease. It was a fact. Jay knew this, and he didn't have any kids. Jay liked kids, that was why he had become a teacher a while back. But he didn't want to be a parent. The best thing about kids, he thought, was that they went home. When they returned to Marcia's house about a half an hour later, Dylan had been working on the test. But once he saw them, he quit almost immediately. I know this stuff already. But when Jay checked the test, it was multiple choice, at least the first part. He saw that half the questions were wrong. Jay knew he needed his help. But getting Dylan to do the test and then work on it afterwards wasn't going to work. Jay decided to go over an old test that Dylan had worked on. They went over each problem. Jay discovered that even though several of the answers were right, Dylan couldn't explain why. This took about another half an hour, before the boy became frustrated again. In the meantime, Jay had told Marcia that he wanted wings for dinner and Marcia was going to Buffalo Wild Wings to get them. Dylan, hearing this, went into Marcia's car. He wanted to go, but this wasn't acceptable since he had studying to do. Look, let's not get into a shouting match with Dylan, Jay said. Let's take my car and deal with him when we get back. Jay led Marcia to his car and they both got in. Dylan was sitting in Marcia's car when the two left. I don't know what I'm going to do with that boy, Marcia told Jay. I don't know either. Last time, he said he had a headache and couldn't study. The test is tomorrow and he won't do it today either. He does know something. He'll never get 100, but if he puts in a little time, he can pass. I've told him 1,000 times. Julianne said you saw a doctor and that you repeat yourself a lot. She said that? Yes. I don't know what she is talking about. I have to repeat myself with her. She doesn't do what I say. At night it's tough to get her to bed and in the morning she is never ready for school. Dylan may have his problems, but he is always ready to go to school in the morning. I have to tell her to get dressed, brush her hair, brush her teeth. I tell her over and over. I don't know what to tell you. I don't have kids. I like kids, but actually, I'm glad I'm not a parent. She doesn't understand. If she did what I told her the first time, I wouldn't have to repeat myself. The conversation continued about her kids, family, work, and many other topics until they returned home. By that time, Dylan had returned to his test. He hadn't done many problems, maybe about 20, but a few he had totally skipped and some others he had narrowed the choices, but hadn't arrived at only one answer. After the wings, Jay got down to studying with Dylan. Dylan wanted to buy some sneakers and Marcia had promised him. But not until after they had finished studying. The place was open until 9, so as long as they finished at 8 she could drive him. In the 2.5 or 3 hours in between, Jay helped Dylan. They looked at the test together. Dylan would work on the problem and Jay would guide him to the correct choice and give explanations as necessary. With Jay by his side, the time actually flew by. Marcia was satisfied with Dylan and took him to get the sneakers he wanted. But before leaving, she suggested that Julianne and Jay play the board game Clue. Jay liked to play board games with his younger relatives. There was a small strategy to Clue that Julianne didn't pick up. Jay knew that if he really tried he could always win the game. But he didn't play that hard to win, although he wasn't a pushover. Choices could be eliminated even when it wasn't your turn. Julianne was 11, she didn't know how to reason what another player was told. Maybe when she got older she could, but not yet. Julianne, Jay, and Jimmy all played. 4-year-old Sophia sat on Jimmy's lap and helped Jimmy's cards and thought she was playing, but really wasn't. Julienne won the game. Colonel Mustard did it in the billiard room with the wrench. Wow, you are really getting good at this, Jay enthused. Yes, I have been playing with my babysitter. You think you can win again? Yes, I can. Then let's bet. Bet what? Well, if I win, then you have to stop complaining to your mom when it's bedtime. You have to do everything you need to do to go to sleep. Then get in your bed and be asleep at bedtime. And in the morning, you have to get ready to go to school without being told. Okay, what do I get if I win? Anything you want. Okay, then if I win, then it's your bedtime instead of mine and all the rest. What happens if Daddy wins? I guess then the bet is off. But if I beat you, then you must go to bed on time like your mom wants you to. And if I win, then you have the early bedtime. Right. Jimmy wasn't paying attention. He was mostly entertaining Sophia. It's a bet, Jay agreed. He wasn't going to lose. Besides, a bet like that didn't count for him. He was an adult. Okay, wait right here. Julienne then ran to get something. What is that? It's a cheater's stone. It makes sure you can't cheat. How does it do that? Well, both you and I hold it together. Like this. Jay and Julienne held the stone in between both their hands. Okay, now with the other hand you lock pinkies like a pinky swear. The two did as she said. Then you both say, IBT. Which they both did. Okay, that did it. Once you use the stone once, the stone will keep track of all your bets. You don't have to do all this again. Good, that was quite an ordeal. The stone makes sure you have to follow through on all your bets. No one knew how Julienne got the stone nor that the stone was magical enough to make sure that all bets had to be paid no matter how ridiculous they may have been. The stone would make it possible. The game started and then just by luck, which could happen include Julienne guessed right. There was nothing that Jay could do, it was just a shot in the dark. Miss Scarlet did it in the kitchen with the knife. I win, she shouted joyously. Hey, no fair. I don't care, I won. I want a rematch. Double or nothing? Okay. It's a bet. The next game started and it didn't go as fast as the first. Jay was sure who did it and with what but hadn't decided upon the room. Before the game was over, Marcia had returned home with Dylan. The bet had influenced her and everyone else, without them knowing it ever took place. Okay, Jay, your bedtime is soon, you have to get ready. But. No buts. You know what to do. Do it now. Jay did know what to do. Julienne's entire bedtime ritual he now knew. He wanted to resist, but he had to leave the game. Jay couldn't help himself. The cheater's stone forced him to follow Julienne's routine to the letter. He went up to Julienne's room and took out her nightgown and a pair of panties. He didn't want to, but he couldn't help himself. He didn't know how he could fit into either of them. Then he went into the bathroom and took off his clothes. He put his used clothing in the hamper. Then turned on the shower and stepped in. He washed and conditioned his hair and washed all over his body. Then he left the shower and dried himself off. He wrapped the semi-wet towel around his chest, like Julienne was supposed to do, and then brushed his hair. Sitting upon the toilet with the cover down, he did 50 strokes on both sides of his head as if he had long hair. It didn't matter that his hair was short. He then stood up and pulled on his panties. It was very tight. There was barely enough stretch to get them up his legs, but somehow it made it there. His penis was trapped close to his body by the panties. It was almost painful. The nightgown was easier. Nightgowns are made to hang loosely on those who wear them. This nightgown was tighter than it was supposed to be, especially across his chest, but he could get it on. Once he was done, he headed towards Julienne's bed. He couldn't help himself. He found a glass of water waiting for him on her nightstand. He dutifully drank it. Marcia came to tuck him in. Then she gave him Julienne's stuffed rabbit and he put it under his arm. Finally she picked out a bedtime story and started to read to him. Before it was done, Jay had fallen asleep. While Jay was getting ready for bed, Jimmy was putting Sophia to bed too. Afterwards, Julienne said, "Let's finish the game. It's done now. It's almost over. It's not fair that Uncle Jay had to go to bed. You take over for him until we finish," Julienne told her mom. The game was continued, and since Marcia had to start from scratch and Jimmy wasn't paying attention, Julienne won. Now she had the double or nothing. She would decide what she won later. She stayed up as late as she wanted, just like Uncle Jay. Well, technically he was her cousin, but she called him Uncle Jay, would have. When she was tired, she went to bed but found that Uncle Jay's clothing wouldn't fit her. With her winning bet she said, "I want our clothes to fit." All of the clothes in the suitcase and everything else resized for her thin body. The same happened to the clothes that Jay was wearing. The panties stretched to a size that would accommodate him, along with the nightgown and everything else in Julienne's closets and drawers. In the morning, Marcia woke up Jay. "Wake up, it's time to get ready for the day." Jay was compelled to follow Julienne's morning ritual just as she would. But when Jay woke up, he found that he had his typical morning wood. This would have been painful for him if he was wearing the several sizes too small panties he had gone to bed in, but now that his clothing had adjusted, his member actually felt quite good under the smooth material of Julienne's panties. But he didn't worry about that now. He was much more concerned to find himself still in Julienne's bed. He didn't notice that the nightgown he was wearing had grown either. He was torn between staying in bed and hoping this nightmare would end and leaving it to get everything back to normal. He really didn't have any choice in the matter. Once Marcia told him to get up, he had to do it. He got out of bed. He was still hugging Julienne's favorite stuffed animal, Rabbit. He left the bed and went to Julienne's drawers. He didn't want to, he just did it sort of on autopilot. Inside her drawers he found a new pair of panties in a soft blue color and some matching socks. Then he looked into a lower drawer for a nice t-shirt. The t-shirt was just like any other t-shirt. It was a gray t-shirt with capped neon green sleeves that said "Winning Streak" on fleek. He didn't know what that meant, but it wasn't too girly, so he selected it. Finally he went to his closet to pick out a pair of jeans. It didn't surprise him that all the clothes fit him. Even Julienne's sneakers, Skechers girls' sneakers in purple and black with laces, fit. Once he had finished selecting his clothes, he took off his nightgown and panties. The panties went into the hamper, and the nightgown he knew instinctively had to be returned to its hanger in the closet. He was now naked and started to dress. Marcia, still wearing her nightie, went into the room without knocking as she had thousands of times before and saw what Jay had selected. "Aren't you going to wear a bra?" "I don't need one," Jay explained. "No one needs a training bra. But we all wear them so we can get used to them when we do need a real bra." What Marcia said made perfect sense if in fact it was an 11-year-old girl who was getting dressed, but Jay was neither of those things. Wearing a bra was just one more step in what Julienne did to get ready in the morning, and so Jay had to do it too. Julienne had said similar things to her mom that Jay had said, and they had gotten into a similar argument. But Jay was compelled to not only do Julienne's morning and bedtime ritual, but to do it without arguing with Julienne's mother. Jay returned to the underwear drawer to find a bra. The bra was lightly padded without any real cups and like the rest of Julian's clothing fit Jay perfectly. Jay got dressed, fixed his hair, brushed his teeth, put away his used clothes, put away his toys and made his bed just as Julianne was expected to do and then came down to breakfast. Julianne was waiting for him. She was wearing Jay's clothes although they were in a size that fit her perfectly. Jay assumed she was wearing his briefs too, just as he was wearing her panties, but he couldn't be 100% sure one way or the other. Julianne and the rest of her family were also sitting around the table waiting for Marcia to fix breakfast. On the table were empty bowls that would soon contain the sugary cereal which Jay was expected to eat. Everyone saw Jay dressed in Julianne's clothing and didn't say a word. It all seemed quite normal to them although Julianne usually arrived at the table a little later than the rest. Dylan might have had his problems, but he was never late for school and never had to be reminded what to do to get ready. A few moments later, Jimmy came down to breakfast. He was dressed in his work clothes. He was the supervisor of the superintendents of several high schools. He couldn't wear just the usual maintenance man uniform, he had to look the part. He came down wearing a black tea-length formal dress. It was a one-shoulder dress which had a satin bodice and a tulle skirt. The belt which accentuated the natural waist was made of stretch satin. It had a low back. Jimmy preferred low back or open back dresses since he thought they emphasized his best feature, his slightly hairy back. He didn't like wearing the hose or the heels he had to wear, but dressing properly was part of the job. "You look good," Jay told him. "Thank you. I have to dress up for my job. I wish I could go back to the jumpsuits I used to wear when I just started out. But when you make it to the top you have to look good." "Well, you certainly do. If you think I look good now, you should see me when I'm doing a gig. You should see us perform." Jimmy and two of his friends were in the Supremes cover band. Jimmy didn't play Diana Ross in the band. "I know, I should," Jay agreed. He had never seen Jimmy perform. Not when he was in a Beatles cover band or when that changed, due to the Cheater's Stone a while back, to the Supremes. "But my singing is nothing. If you want to hear some great singing, you should come down and hear Dylan. He is the lead soprano in the choir. He is also taking ballet lessons too. Maybe he'll be a professional ballerina or singer in a few years. He is quite talented." "Dad," Dylan whined while Jimmy was describing his son's talents. "It's true, son. I have great faith in you. You can make it, if you can just focus." "Julianne," Jay told her confidentially, "we have to fix this." "Fix what?" Julianne said with mock sincerity. "You know what. This, the way I am dressed and all the rest. Well, it was a bet. The only way to change it is to bet again, double or nothing. We don't have time for a game. You have to get to school soon." Jay had to follow all the bedtimes and morning stuff, but the bet didn't say anything about going to school. "I have an idea. Let's bet on whoever can finish their cereal the fastest." This seemed like a good bet to Jay. He was an adult with a bigger mouth. He would force himself to win, then this would all be over. "Okay, it's a bet. Double or nothing." "Okay, let me see, if you win. Then it is all back to the way it was. But if I win, then you have to go to school for me." "Go to school? You mean drive you to school?" "No. Go to school like I would have to and sit in class." "I can't do that. I'm not a kid." He didn't want to say little girl. "Well, if you don't want to bet." "No, I'll bet." "Okay, that is the first thing and I'll come up with a second thing later." "Second thing?" "Yes, 2 things. You lost twice last night and this is double or nothing. Whatever, Jay said, exasperated. He didn't think he was going to lose anyway, so what was the difference? It's a bet. Marcia had returned to the kitchen. She was wearing only a shirt and nothing else. She was going naked, as the family called it. She had the modesty of a 2-year-old and just loved to walk around without clothing on. When home, it wasn't unusual for her to remove her pants or her shirt at any time. She just didn't care. The family assumed she would grow out of it when she got older. Marcia put cereal in the bowls of her 3 children and Jay. Then she poured the milk. She poured the milk of Julienne before Jay, but Julienne played fair and didn't start until they were both ready. 1, 2, 3, go! Julienne shouted. Both Julienne and Jay started to stuff cereal into their mouth. Jay picked up his bowl and started to drink the entire contents down without using a spoon. Jay, what are you doing? Marcia demanded. Eating, Jay said with his mouth stuffed, but he didn't stop scooping food into his mouth. I can see that. But how do we eat at the table? Julienne had had this argument many times with her mother. The proper way to eat was to carefully spoon the food into your mouth and then chew it thoroughly with your mouth closed until it was done. Jay had to stop what he was doing and eat properly. This took a lot of time. He couldn't take big scoops of his cereal. He had to put it carefully into his mouth and then close his mouth and chew the food thoroughly. He couldn't put the next bite of food into his mouth until the last bite was swallowed. All these steps might aid in his digestion, but it slowed him down considerably. Julienne could still take shortcuts since she wasn't under any obligation to eat as Marcia demanded. Julienne won easily, as she knew she would, and didn't have to go to school that morning. It would be Jay who would have to go. Julienne could stay home with Marcia as Jay had planned to originally. Marcia cleaned all the dishes immediately after everyone was done. She was obsessive when it came to housework. She wasn't always this way. Just like her newfound lack of modesty, she had also made a bet of 2 using the cheater's stone. Once breakfast was over, Julienne gave Jay her book bag and her lunchbox. Jay was still an adult and didn't need to be taken to school, he could drive himself. When it was time to leave, Jay took his school supplies and went to his car. He then drove the approximate half-mile to Julienne's school. He didn't want to do it. But as with everything else, the cheater's stone made him. Julienne, who was still tired, went back to bed. She had only gotten up to see Jay. She wasn't even wearing her day clothes when she had made the bet. She knew she would win. She would think about the second part of the bet after she was up for the day. She could sleep in until noon if she wanted to. Jay drove to the school. He couldn't park in the school parking lot that was only for teachers and parents who were dropping off their children. There wasn't a parking lot for students, obviously, as the oldest students were 12 and maybe an occasional 13-year-old. None of them drove cars to the school as was possible in high school. Jay found a spot on the street close to the school and walked the short distance. The school wasn't very far away from Marcia's home and he could have walked the entire distance if he wanted to, but he didn't. He had a car and he wanted to use it. He walked straight onto school grounds and no one said a thing to him. Then he entered the school and still no one said a word. Not the students nor the guards who were posted at the door. He went in just like the rest of the students. He walked the halls and none of the teachers he passed gave any notice to him being out of place. By instinct he arrived at Julienne's 5th grade classroom. "Ah, we have been expecting you," the teacher said. "You have?" "Yes, you are taking Julienne's place today, aren't you?" "I guess I am." "I'm Mr. Kern." "What is your name?" Mr. Kern was an 11-year-old boy dressed in a business suit and a tie. Even though he was the smallest boy in the room, he had the demeanor of a teacher who didn't take any crap from his students. He ran a tight classroom. All of his students were well behaved. Whether Mr. Kern was the winner or the loser of a bet, only the cheater's stone knew. "I'm Jay Heckmare." Then a moment later he added, "Julienne's cousin." "Fine, Jay. Let me introduce you to the class," Mr. Kern said. Then in a louder voice, Children, can I have your attention?" The class quieted down. Mr. Kern was a good teacher and had trained his class well. "This is Jay. He will be filling in for Julienne for a while. I want you to give him the same respect you would give to Julienne or any other student in this class. Is that understood?" The class responded with, "Yes, Mr. Kern." Jay thought about what he had heard. Mr. Kern said filling in for Julienne for a while, not a day. Jay might be her all week until he goes home at the end of his stay. This wasn't going to be good. But at the moment there was little he could do about it. He would have to figure out a way to get back to normal. Jay felt like a new student at the first day of being transferred to a new school. He didn't want to be there, but he knew this is where he belonged. The only way out was the double or nothing thing. He had to figure out something that only he could win. "That is Julienne's seat and now it is yours," Mr. Kern said, indicating a seat in the third row on the left side of the room. Jay took his things, book bag and lunchbox, and proceeded to the appropriate desk. Jay took his seat and resigned himself that he was stuck in this class just like any other fifth grader. He assumed the work would be easy, but who knew? Not everyone won the Who Wants to Be Smarter Than a Fifth Grader show. Jay looked around the room. It was typical of any elementary school room. Here were colorful posters on the walls in a variety of subjects: English, math, science, and social studies. There was also plenty of the students' work hanging from the walls. All had exceptional grades printed upon them in a bright red pencil, usually a 100%, but there were some 90s too. A long chalkboard took up the front of the room. To the left were windows and heating elements. On the right were the coat closets and in the back were cubbies. Before heading to his seat, Jay went to the coat closet, found an empty hook and put his jacket upon it. Since he was the tallest student in the room, by far most of the top hooks were empty. He selected one closest to his seat. Jay found himself surrounded by boys. The seats had been arranged such that the boys and the girls were interdispersed. This was a sensible precaution in a world where the boys and the girls each thought the other had cooties. As far as Jay could tell, everything was perfectly normal. The only thing wrong with this entire school was that he was in it and no one seemed to mind. Taking his seat, he did what the other students had done. He took out his workbook and did the problem on the board, which was labeled "Do Now." The problem was on fractions. There were a list of fractions with one missing and he had to figure out what was the missing fraction. It was very easy stuff and he finished quite quickly. He wasn't the first to finish the problems. Some of the students had started before he had, but when he was done he had time to think. Jay couldn't really believe where he was. He was a grown man in a school with fifth graders. Anyone else would be arrested, especially in this day and age where the world seemed to be full of nuts. The clothes he was wearing weren't particularly girly. Jeans and a t-shirt were fine, although neon green wasn't really a manly color. His shoes were definitely a bit girly. What he thought was purple in Julienne's room was really a dark pink now that he took a better look at them. The socks he was wearing, which peeked out between his jeans and his shoes, was more colorful than he had ever worn. The girliest thing was his panties, which no one saw of course, and his bra, which no one could see directly, but the outline of the straps could be clearly seen under his shirt. The light padding did make a slight indentation in his shirt in the front also. Jay tried not to dwell upon that. He tried to convince himself that the bra couldn't be seen at all, even though he knew from experience that outline of the straps of bras could always be seen under t-shirts. All the teachers and staff of the school treated Jay as if he was just another student, including Mr. Kern. The children were another story. He wasn't sure if they were treating him like they would any other student who was new or like an adult in their midst. Some students would take casual glances at him, others would stare openly from time to time. It didn't matter the gender of the student, both sexes would do it. No one talked to him and he didn't try and talk to anyone. Jay didn't see any reason to become friendly with any of the students. Besides, any talking between students was quickly put an end to by Mr. Kern anyway. All Jay wanted to do was get through the day. A short time later, Mr. Kern came to Jay's seat. Now over there, Mr. Kern pointed to an area on the chalkboard in the left corner, is where we write down tomorrow's homework. Write it down and do it at home, Mr. Kern said confidentially. Jay wasn't sure if he was supposed to do it or Julianne. This would be clearly Julianne's homework, but he was the one attending the class now and he didn't know what the gambler's stone would expect. He supposed the homework would be easy anyway. He decided to just write it down now and worry about who would do it later. Mr. Kern ran his class very well. He had trained his students to be well behaved. No one spoke without first putting his hand up or being acknowledged by name. Mr. Kern selected mostly from the students with their hands up, but he could also ask some students who tried to stay motionless. Jay didn't raise his hand, but when Mr. Kern asked him a question he answered it. Jay kept his voice even when answering the question. He didn't want to make any trouble. Mr. Kern went from one subject to the other in an efficient manner. Jay, who had been a teacher, although in high school, appreciated the expertise that Mr. Kern had in running his classroom. Doing the 5th grade work was very easy for Jay. It was really a waste of his time, but he had to stay here just like any other student. He didn't know how long this would last. It might last just until it was time to go home, but he wasn't sure. Did this mean, he thought, that he couldn't go home on Friday like he planned? Maybe he could, but he might be back at school on Monday then. The cheater's stone was obviously very powerful, he was helpless against it. If it wanted him back here, then he would have to go. It was obvious since he was here and no one thought he was out of place. It was like adults went to school for their cousins all the time. Did the people think he was a little girl? Jay didn't think so, but they treated him like he did belong at this school, which was ridiculous. All these thoughts went through his mind. It scared him. He had to figure a way out of this, and a bet that he won was the only way. Then another thought occurred to him: if he had to go to the bathroom, which one should he use? He was still a man, but he was dressed as a girl, sort of. His panties and bra were definitely made for a girl, but jeans and the t-shirt were unisex. Jay guessed it didn't matter too much. Being in an elementary school class and being treated just like one of the students was a worse problem. Jay determined to wait until he got home if he needed to go. Back at home, Julianne finally got out of bed. She loved that she could go back to bed and sleep late. This was heavenly to her. It was great that no one told her what to do. When she got out of bed, she was wearing Jay's boxers and a pair of his pajamas, which had been shrunk to fit her frame. Jay usually didn't wear pajamas at home, but he had bought this pair for the trip since there would be children around. Looking into Jay's suitcase, Julianne looked for something nice to wear. But there wasn't anything particularly nice. It was all just a bunch of men's clothes. There wasn't anything colorful or in a nice fabric or style that she liked. There were a bunch of jeans and t-shirts. But even the t-shirts were very ordinary. She didn't like them at all. She decided to use the second part of her bet to change things. She could have changed the clothes to more feminine clothes as she had changed the size, but decided to make her like the clothes that Jay had brought instead. She would now only like for herself male and unisexed clothing. She didn't use those words, she didn't even know what the word unisex meant. But the cheater's stone could understand her. She now felt totally comfortable in any clothing that Jay had brought or owned. As the hours passed, Jay found himself looking around the class and at the students. There was a pretty girl who was wearing a very nice top. He hadn't noticed it before. It was a true top, not a t-shirt like he was wearing. The top was woven with ruffles all over and flutter sleeves. It was mostly light blue, but it had a very pretty floral design throughout. It had a rounded neck, not just a plain crew neck like he was wearing. Looking down, he saw that she wasn't wearing jeans either, she was wearing leggings to match the top. Jay realized he could have worn clothing like that. He didn't have to wear boring clothes like jeans and t-shirts, for now he could wear something really nice. This might be the only time in his life he didn't have to wear just boring male clothing, he could wear something with style. He realized that he had always wanted to try on such things, but he was afraid to. He didn't want anyone to call him names, but after the bet he didn't have to worry about that anymore. Wearing a bra now seemed like fun, and he was glad that Marcia made him. Despite their color, he was really just wearing plain sneakers. He remembered seeing a cute pair of shoes in Julienne's closet, but he had decided upon the sneakers instead. He didn't know why he didn't at least try them on. He thought this was a chance of a lifetime to wear girls' clothing to see what it was like. Jay didn't know that the next phase of the bet was made since he hadn't heard Julienne make it, but he now found any clothing that was masculine or even unisex pretty boring. He just didn't want to wear them anymore. All of Julienne's feminine clothing choices were now his. For him to want to wear a pair of jeans, they would have to be of an obvious feminine style. Even jeggings was on the borderline. Jay decided that while he could, when he got home he would wear some nicer, meaning prettier and more girly, stuff. He was dying to try on a pair of leggings just like the girl was wearing and a shirt with some color and accents. He hadn't thought about wearing a skirt or dress yet. Just for now it was leggings and feminine tops. He had received all of Julienne's girly tastes in clothing, and even she didn't want to wear dresses and skirts all the time. She was only 11. Marcia would also not have to remind Jay to wear a bra ever again. He liked them, they made his tops look better, he thought. Now that the final part of the last bet was fulfilled, Jay was free to think of a new bet. The cheater's stone wouldn't let him think of a new bet until the old one was finished. He didn't realize that it had worked that way. He didn't even consciously know that Julienne had completed what she wanted. Jay wanted to get home and win back his life. That could wait a little while until he tried on some things. This would be the only time he could do so without anyone else or even himself thinking he was a transvestite. He wasn't going to let this opportunity pass by. With plenty of time to think, he had to think of a bet with Julienne that he knew he would definitely win. He decided upon betting that she couldn't solve a riddle. He knew a bunch. He had been exposed to them as he was growing up. The answer would be things like the letter E, a river, time, and all sorts of esoteric things. He was sure he could remember one that Julienne couldn't figure out. He would just have to come up with one that she hadn't heard before. That was the problem, people told these famous riddles all the time, maybe she had heard one. Jay spent the rest of the day coming up with the perfect one. He wanted to test it out on one of the students, but he was mostly left alone by them. He still didn't know if that was because he was the new kid or because he was an adult or if it was because he wore such boring clothing. As a result, during lunch at a table full of kids, no one talked to him. Soon the day was over and Jay drove himself home. Jay had to circle back and pass the school again on his way home. He saw the students waiting online for the school bus and was glad he could just drive himself. Jay noticed that Mr. Kern wasn't so lucky, he was waiting online with the students. Marcia and Julienne was home when he got there. Jimmy was still at work, Sophia was at daycare, and Dylan would be home soon. Dylan had a longer trip from the high school and he had to wait for the bus. "How was school?" Marcia asked. "It was boring. I don't want to go." "Then you shouldn't have swapped with Julienne." "I didn't swap, I lost a bet." "Same difference." "Julienne and I are going out shopping. Do you want to come with us?" "Okay, I guess." "Do you have homework?" "Homework?" "Yes, didn't the teacher give you homework?" "Well, yes, but shouldn't Julienne do it?" "It's your homework. You had better get to it." Marcia was right, it was his homework. If it wasn't done, he was the one who would get into trouble. He thought he could get things back to normal later, but just in case. He really didn't want to cause a fuss at school if he had to go back. He was sure that the riddle thing would work. He would have asked Julienne about it now, but he wanted to try on some of his new cute clothes while he had a chance. He would stay here, start his homework and then try on some stuff. He didn't really like the jeans he was wearing. They were okay, but he could be wearing something nicer. Once again he refused to think of them as either prettier or girlier, but that is what he meant. "Okay, I'll do it now. You go without me." Once they were gone, Jay finished his homework in a few minutes and then went off to Julienne's room. He took off his sneakers, jeans and shirt, leaving him only in his socks, panties and bra. The panties were a bit plain looking to him too, but maybe next time he would put on something else. He was determined to put on something like the girl he saw. He wanted to wear leggings with a nice top and shoes. He found some printed ankle leggings with a black and pink heart pattern. They were made of cotton with 5% spandex which hugged his legs. He had never worn pants that hugged his legs so. They were very soft and he loved the feel. Jay never knew clothing could feel so comfortable. Even his favorite most worn-in jeans didn't feel this good. He moved his hand up and down his leg, just enjoying the softness. Then he found a white off-the-shoulder scalloped top with blue lace trim. This was also something new for him. He had never worn anything that was off the shoulders. It had a scooped neck, but wasn't too revealing since it was designed for a tween girl. He just loved it and it worked so well with the leggings. It even hung low enough on his leggings that it covered the bulge that would have been clearly evident. Next he found a pair of sandals with a small heel and a strap around the ankle. He put them on, but these sandals were made to be worn with bare feet, so he removed his socks and then put the sandals on once again. His outfit was complete. Not only did he look good, but the clothes were super comfortable. He even liked how his bra straps could be seen above the shoulders of his top. The white top with the white bra worked very nicely. Everything looked so nice on him and felt so good that he decided that as long as the bet was in effect that he would always wear the clothes that he couldn't wear normally. He didn't want to wear skirts all the time, but these leggings felt heavenly on his legs. Maybe next time he would wear them with nylon panties. He had never worn nylon underwear before. He was sure they would feel great too. He was about to leave the room when he realized that his clothing was thrown on the bed and on the floor. He knew he couldn't leave them that way. So he put his soiled clothes into the hamper as he had done the night before. Jay debated upon driving over to the grocery store where Marcia and Julienne were. He wanted to show them his outfit, but he thought that doing so would make him seem too immature. He was still a man, he knew. He decided to watch some TV and wait for them. Dylan had already returned home from school. Dylan had taken off his shoes and socks, although still in his school clothes, and put on ballet slippers. He was practicing his glissade assemble on the hard wooden floor. He bounced back and forth from one side to the other. Jay decided to watch him for a while. Even though Dylan wasn't properly dressed, in a leotard, he did look good. Jimmy was right, Dylan certainly had some dancing talent. Jay was hoping that Dylan would notice what he was wearing and say something nice about it. Dylan had never seen him dress like this, no one had. But he didn't say a word. He simply didn't care about Jay's outfit. Dylan finished up what he was doing and took a seat on the couch to watch some TV. Your dad was right. You are very good. Thank you. My teacher says I am the best in the class. I practice every day I can. Even when I don't have class. I can tell. Keep it up. Jay decided to keep the conversation going. How was school today? It was boring. Me too. I heard you went to school for Julienne. Yeah. Are you going to go tomorrow too? I'm not sure, I think so. I don't know how it works exactly. Me neither. But I don't like to bet anyway. I think that is a good idea. Stay away from gambling. It can cost you. In the end, it would cost Jay everything. If you say so. I just don't like it. Neither had any idea that Dylan had bet and lost some time back. A while later, the phone rang. It was Marcia. I'm running late. Can you pick up Sophia from daycare? Sure thing. I'll call daycare and let them know to expect you. She'll be ready in about 15 minutes. I'll be there, Jay agreed, and then to Dylan, want to come and help me pick up Sophia? I don't know. I'll get ice cream on the way home. Dylan may be 16, but everyone likes ice cream, so he decided to come along. Jay secured in the spare car seat into back seat. Then they went to pick up Sophia. Dylan had to put back on his sneakers to go outside. The daycare wasn't too far and Dylan knew how to get there. Dylan waited in the car while Jay went inside to get Sophia. He didn't take his jacket since it was only a few steps to the door. This was the first time he was walking on the pavement in heeled shoes. The heels were small and designed for girls, but it was a strange experience nonetheless. He had gotten so used to wearing leggings by now that he didn't notice them. What he did notice was the wind on his uncovered shoulders. It wasn't that it was really cold, it was just unexpected. Jay went inside and told them who he was. They said they had been expecting him and brought him into the facility to get Sophia. A woman inside noticed Jay's top and liked it, but she didn't say anything since she didn't know who he was. There wasn't any shock about how Jay was dressed. An attendant was helping Sophia get ready. Once Sophia had her jacket on and all of her stuff, Jay took her by the hand and led her to the car. Sophia got into the back seat and sat in the spare car seat. Jay drove them to the ice cream shop and they all got out to select their flavor. Jay put on his jacket this time to keep his bare shoulders warm. Everyone got their pick and the trio ate the ice cream in the shop. Jay didn't want his car to get all dirty. It was at the ice cream shop that Sophia noticed what Jay was wearing. You look very pretty, she said. Thank you, Jay said, not wanting to correct her to use the word handsome instead of pretty. Sophia was only 4, there was no reason to make the girl feel bad. Sophia, how was daycare? It's not daycare, it's my school. The daycare was known as school to the attendees. Okay, how was school? We had lots of fun. We played singing games. Like what? Sophia tried to sing the song she had learned, but without music and the help of the attendant she got it all wrong. But she pressed on regardless. Wow, that was great. You're a good little singer, Jay enthused. What else did you do? Sophia explained as best she could what she did. For half the time, the boys and girls were separated to do their own activities. There were a few activities that both genders did together, such as singing. But for the most part the boys played boys' games with the other boys and the girls played girls' games with the other girls. During their conversation, Dylan's cell rang and he answered it. It was his girlfriend. Dylan's girlfriends used to be under 17, now all his girlfriends are over 71. What's wrong? Jay asked. It's my girlfriend. She said they are going to be playing bingo at the home. She wanted to know if I could come. Are you going to go? I don't think so. Why not? We got into a big fight last time. I told her she has to keep her dentures in when she sees me. But she doesn't. Then when I complain, she says she can't hear me because of her hearing aid. But I know her hearing aid works just fine. I don't know, I might have to break up with her. Relationships are always complicated. I have similar problems with my girlfriends. Girlfriends? Yeah, I have 3 right now. How do you juggle that many? I just do. Marcia and Julienne returned home not long after Jay did. Marcia was carrying dresses that she picked up from the cleaners. The very formal prom and cocktail dresses were encased in plastic. They were Jimmy's work attire. Marcia brought them up to her bedroom to be put away. When she came down, Marcia wasn't wearing a shirt nor her bra. Mom, we have guests, Julienne reminded her. Marcia reluctantly went back to her room. There was a clear pout on her face. When she returned, she was dressed appropriately, although she clearly wasn't happy about it. Okay, Julienne, I want another double or nothing. I'll bet you I can ask you a riddle you won't get. Jay asked when he got her alone. No bet, Julienne said. This totally threw Jay off. What do you mean no bet? I mean no bet. I don't want to bet for that. But you have to. You have to give me a chance to get even. No, I don't. I gave you 2 chances already. Who says I have to give you another chance? You just have to. I think it's fine the way it is. No, it isn't. I'm not supposed to be in the 5th grade, you are. Okay, I'll double or nothing you, for let's see, I want your education and your driver's license. This was only 2 things, but there were 4 things that Jane needed. When Julienne did make a double or nothing, she would get 2 more things if she won. What do you mean my education and my driver's license? I mean just that, if I win, I'll know everything you learned in school and I'll be legally able to drive your car and everything that goes along with it. Jay didn't understand what was meant by everything that went along with it. But he didn't have any choice. If she refused to bet, then he was stuck in the 5th grade, regardless of his education. Okay, so it's a bet? Jay asked. No, I'll decide upon the bet. Okay, what will it be? I don't know, let me think for a while. I'll come up with something. Jay pestered Julienne all day. He had to win everything back. Jimmy finally made it home at 6:30. He wanted to get out of his work clothes before sitting down to dinner. So he went to his room to remove his dress and shoes. His feet were aching from wearing heels all day. Jay had a better appreciation for the outfit that Jimmy was wearing and was a little disappointed when he came back wearing only some sweats. They all sat down for dinner. Jay, are you sure you have to go on Friday? I have a gig coming up Saturday. It'll be a great show. I'm sorry I made other plans. I can't get out of it. You should hear me sing. I sound just like Mary Wilson. I swear if you close your eyes you'll think you are hearing her. Jimmy is really good, Marcia said, supporting her husband. You should see him. I don't doubt it, but I have to go. Jimmy, that reminds me. I picked up your dresses from the dry cleaning, Marcia told him. Thanks, honey. Finally, it was Jay's bedtime. Marcia told him to get ready for bed. This was the time that Julianne came up with an idea. Okay, I'll bet you I can be in my jammies faster than you can. Jay knew that he was going to wear a nightgown, so that would be faster than putting on the PJs that Julianne was going to wear. Plus Julianne's room, which was his now, was closer than the guest bedroom where Julianne's clothes were. Without thinking, Jay said it's a bet, and ran towards his room. But what Jay forgot was that he was wearing Julianne's sandals that had a buckled ankle strap. He had to take a seat just to try and get them off. Julianne was wearing sneakers, which she quickly flicked off. It was true that she also had to pull off her socks, but that was nothing compared to the effort of unbuckling the tiny latch that held on Jay's shoes. Julianne stripped off her clothes quickly and put on her PJs. It was no contests, especially since Jay had to unfasten the bra before he got it off. He thought he could pull it over his head, but that wasn't meant to be. Jay finished dressing and returned to the living room in his nightgown to realize that he had lost. But then he realized that not only was all his education past 5th grade gone, but tomorrow he would need someone to drive him to school or he would have to walk. Then, to add insult to injury, Marcia reminded Jay that he had to take a shower and brush his hair and all the rest. So he trudged to the bathroom and took off the gown and panties he had just put on and took his shower like he did the night before. He had to follow Julianne's, now his, bedtime ritual to the letter, which included 50 strokes with his hairbrush, being tucked in with his rabbit, and a bedtime story. So ended his second day at his cousin's. Julianne stayed up late that night too. She didn't have a bedtime anymore, and she didn't need to go to school either. Although she decided to get up early. She wanted to drive Jay to school. She wasn't sure if she owned Jay's car, but of the two of them, she was the only one licensed to drive. She was actually feeling so giddy about it that she decided if she was going to drive Jay to school, she should also drive Dylan to school and Sophia to daycare. Jay woke up the next morning, but didn't get out of bed. He still had the rabbit clutched in his arms. It comforted him. He was full of energy since he had gotten a full night's sleep, and when Marcia came in to wake him up, he shot out of bed. He had to pee anyway. He went to the bathroom and pulled up his gown and down his panties and peed as he normally would standing up. Then he brushed his teeth and his hair. He knew what he had to do in the morning and didn't fight against any of it. Next he went back to the room and picked out an outfit for today. He quickly decided against jeans. He had worn them yesterday. He would never wear jeans again if he could help it. He decided to wear a skirt today. He picked out a red and blue maxi skirt with a geometric pattern. Then he looked through the drawers for a top that went with the skirt. He knew he had to wear a top with some sort of sleeves. Anything sleeveless wouldn't work at school. He found a button-down top that was in similar colors. But before he could put on his outer clothes, he needed a bra and panty. He decided that even though he didn't have breasts, the bra was a good thing. The padding of the cups would make his top look better. He chose a pretty bikini-style panty that was also blue that went with his skirt and a matching bra. He didn't want to wear pantyhose, so he found a pair of nude knee-high stockings to wear with his ballet flats. Without any procrastination, he was ready in no time. Arriving at the breakfast table, he saw that only Dylan and Sophia were there. He ate his breakfast. Marcia was happy that she didn't have to hurry him along today. Julianne woke up a little later than everyone else, but that didn't matter too much. She wanted to drive everyone to school, so she got out of bed quickly. It was a breeze to get ready. Put on any briefs and a pair of jeans. Any t-shirt was acceptable with jeans. Then white socks and sneakers, and she was done. She pulled a brush through her hair a few times and she was ready to go. She could brush her teeth and anything else when she got back from dropping everyone off at school. Mom, I'll take Jay and Dylan to school and Sophia to daycare, Julianne said. I go to school too, Sophia announced. Thanks, Julie, that'll be a big help, Marcia told her. Everyone went to Jay's car. Julianne helped Sophia into her car seat in the back. It was still there from yesterday. Dylan got in the back with her and Jay rode in the front passenger seat. Even though Jay's school was closest, Julianne dropped Dylan and Sophia off first. Alone in the car, Julianne informed Jay that, I have decided. The next step on the bet is that almost all of your friends will be girls around 11. What? Don't worry. This will make school more fun. You will have friends there. But? Hey, unless you win everything back, you will be going to school for a long time. I don't want to go to school. Neither did I, but here we are. You had better get out. Jay did as he was expected. He took his book bag and lunchbox with him and headed towards his class. He knew where it was, including his seat in his room. Today he was proud of his apparel and wanted people to see him. He wasn't worried about someone saying he didn't belong and calling the authorities or whatever one did when an adult man entered a fifth-grade classroom. While he was on his way, Julianne worked on the last part of her bet. There was a boy in her class, Anton, who she liked. While she was at an awkward age, she still thought that all boys were nasty. But there was something about Anton. She hated herself for liking him. He didn't know that she existed, but she wanted him to notice her too. She gave all her feelings for him to Jay. Julianne now no longer felt young nor naive when it came to her social life. She was now dating casually 3 women all in their 30s at the same time. She was sure and confident enough to go after any woman she wanted. It wasn't anything serious with any of them, although she had a good time with all. Julianne didn't want to get tied down to just one woman, and she thought that the girls she was dating knew that. But if they didn't, it didn't matter too much. If they got too serious, he could cut it off with any of them in an instant. She was going to cut her vacation short because she had a date with one of them, Valerie, this Friday. Julianne decided to call Valerie before she returned home to confirm Friday night. Women liked when you frequently called them anyway. The weekend was long, maybe she thought she should call one of the others and see if they were free on Saturday. In the classroom, Jay took his seat and immediately started upon the do now. He found the work challenging, but not impossible. When he got an answer right, he took pride in it. He had to work to get the answers now. Well, for some of the problems anyway. He still had time to look around the class, and he found that he really liked some of the outfits the girls were wearing. Most wore jeans, which he thought were just so plain, but there were a few in nicer clothing that he liked. While looking around, he spotted one of the boys. He felt a bit different. The boy had something indescribable about him. He was different than the other boys. He thought that maybe during lunch he could speak to him. Jay couldn't play with him, he was too big. The boy wouldn't like him if he beat him too badly. But maybe he could watch him play. Jay seemed to remember that yesterday Anton was playing basketball with the boys. The morning flew by as thoughts and school problems entered Jay's head. When it was time for lunch, Jay sat at a table. "Hey, I really like what you have on," Jay told a girl who was sitting at a table with some of her friends. "Thank you. I like your skirt too. I saw you are in my class." "Yeah, I guess I am. I'm Liz. Do you want to sit down?" "Sure." Liz introduced Jay to her friends, and soon the whole group were all friends. Jay liked most of the group, but he thought that Delia wasn't very nice. They started to talk about what they were wearing, then they talked about school and other subjects. Soon lunch was over. Jay didn't have a chance to talk to Anton. Jay was too shy to talk to him anyway, just as Julianne had been. Jay wished that Anton would talk to him first, but he didn't know how to get his attention. Jay had gotten along so well with Liz and her friends that she invited him to her slumber party. "I'll have to ask Marcia if I can go," he said. Somehow he needed her permission to do things like that now. He couldn't even walk home alone anymore. Julianne had gained, and Jay had lost, the rights when she took his driver's license. She could not only drive a car, but she could vote, buy beer, and do as she pleased just like anyone old enough to have a driver's license could. Jay, on the other hand, couldn't do some other things he needed Marcia or Jimmy's permission. Jay decided that he really wanted to go. He would wait for his next double or nothing until after the party, assuming Marcia would allow him to go. Julianne picked up Jay after school. Jay didn't want to swap back until after the party, so he kept his mouth shut. He didn't want Julianne to know about the party at all. Julianne was originally invited to the party, although she had forgotten all about it. She didn't want to go anyway. She was looking forward to her date on Friday. If she did, then she would switch back quick so she could go instead of him. Jay was not going to let that happen. "How was school?" Marcia asked when Jay got home. "It was okay, we learned fractions and spelling and stuff. But I have to ask you something." "What is it?" "Liz at school is having a slumber party with all the other girls, and she said I could come." "Can I?" "Please." "Well, there isn't any school tomorrow," Marcia said. The school was having standardized tests for the 4th and 2nd grade class. Jay, being in the 5th grade, didn't have to attend, so he didn't have any school tomorrow. "If you do all your homework now, then you can go. I'll call Liz's mother and see what the story is." Marcia was a good mother. She never would take her children's word and always checked things out before letting them go anywhere. But she saw no reason not to let Jay go if he wanted to. Homework had to come first. Jay finished his homework and picked what he needed, a nightgown for tonight and a change of clothes for tomorrow. He also changed for the party. He took off his skirt and decided to go wear a nice floral romper. The romper had short sleeves and a pink patent leather belt around his waist. It would be easier to move around in these clothes if there would be any rough housing like a pillow fight. He didn't want to wear sneakers, so he found a pair or slip-on shoes and no-show socks. If he had to move around, he could always take off the shoes and just run around in the socks. This left his bare hairy legs exposed, but he didn't care. Marcia had never taught Julianne how to shave her legs or armpits, but maybe she would have to teach Jay soon. Marcia made sure that Jay's homework was done and then sent Julianne to escort him to the party. Liz was several blocks away, and Marcia would never let him go that far without someone to accompany him. There were a lot of nuts out there these days. Julianne waited at the sidewalk while Jay walked up to the door. He rang the doorbell and Liz's mother opened the door. "Hi," she said cheerily, "I guess you are the new student in Liz's class." "I guess I am," Jay admitted and went inside. Julianne walked back home. Once inside, Liz's mother led him to where all the partiers were. Jay was the only boy technically, but he was treated just like anyone else. There were 6 girls in all, Liz and 5 of her friends. Jay knew all of the girls at the party except one. She wasn't at the table where the other girls had eaten lunch. Liz introduced Jay to the new girl, and then Jay joined in the fun. They were playing a party game called Would You Rather? The girls had started before Jay had come and were well into the game. One girl would pick a question out of a can and then ask another player the question. There were 200 questions, so there was plenty to go around. Since Jay was late to the party, he had to answer the next question. "Would you rather have the floppy ears of a dog or a dog's tail?" one of the girls asked Jay. This was an easy one for him. "I would rather have a tail," he announced. "Why is that?" one of the girls asked. "You can hide a tail under your clothes if you want." There were plenty of fun questions like find proof that Bigfoot or unicorns are real, or have 3 arms or 3 legs. Everyone had a lot of fun. There weren't any serious questions that would embarrass a girl, like truth or dare could have. "Okay, let's play Chubby Bunny next." "I don't know how to play that," Jay admitted. "It's very easy. Everyone gets a marshmallow and puts it in their mouth. Then you say, 'Chubby Bunny.' If everyone can do that, you add another marshmallow. You keep doing that until only one person is left. You can't eat the marshmallow between turns." Jay was sure he would win this game. His mouth was certainly bigger than all the rest of the players. He did win it too. He thought that this would be a great bet to try on Julianne when he got home. He was sure he could beat her. There were other games. Jay and the rest of the girls had a lot of fun. Liz's mom came into the room and told them they should get ready for bed. Everyone started to take off their clothes to put on their nightwear. Jay was now just one of the partiers. He had lost all interest in girls, so he did the same. He removed everything he was wearing, including his panties, and changed into a new pair as he would have at Marcia's house. No one said a word, including Jay. Although Jay did notice that all of the girls were also wearing bras. None of them really needed one. There was one girl who had started to develop, but even she hadn't gotten too far along. Jay was glad that he had worn his. He didn't want to be the only one who didn't wear a bra at the party. Once they were all dressed, they played more games before it was bedtime. Jay and 4 of the girls slept on the floor. One of Liz's friends shared a bed with her. Jay had brought his rabbit to sleep with. This was the 3rd night in a row, and it comforted him. He thought he should give it a name. Chubby Bunny sounded like a good name for his rabbit. He had gotten so used to, because of the cheater's stone, going to bed early that Jay was the first one asleep that night. In the morning they all had breakfast and talked about this and that. They were all going to a movie at noon. Jay wanted to ask the girls about Anton, but he couldn't do it. He didn't want them to know he had a crush upon him. Worse, he didn't want to know if any of the other girls felt sweet on him either. That would be very embarrassing. He tried to bring up the subject but kept chickening out. Jay didn't know that many of the girls had crushes that they didn't talk about. At least they didn't talk about in large groups. In the morning they each took turns taking a quick shower. Jay usually took showers the night before, but this was a shower in the morning household, he surmised. Due to the shower schedule and everything else, the girls were different stage of dress throughout the house. Liz's father wasn't there, so it wasn't any problem. This included Jay, who felt no embarrassment at being half-dressed in front of little girls. He would find it surprising to realize that he would have felt the weird around boys, or especially men. Liz's mom dropped Jay off at Marcia's house after the movie was over. Jay had had a great time and he told Marcia and Julianne all about it. But now was time to get back to everything being normal. He suggested that they bet upon who would win Chubby Bunny. Julianne said she didn't want to bet on that, besides they didn't have any marshmallows anyway. But you could drive to the store and get them, Jay insisted. No, I don't want to play that. You owe me a double or nothing, Jay insisted. I already gave you 3, she reminded him. Just one more. Okay, but I pick the game and I'll tell you what the double will be before we start. This will be the last double or nothing, no matter how it turns out. Okay, it'll be a simple toss of the coin. You pick and I throw it in the air. If you win, everything goes back to the way it was. And if you win? Well then, I don't want anything else from you. I already have everything. I can't think of anything else. But for my 8 choices, Jay didn't realize how many choices were involved now. Then I think I'll help Sophia. The first one, you know that Sophia has to wear a pull-up to bed. She was just potty trained not too long ago and she has accidents at night. You will be the one to have accidents and wear pull-ups. Then for my second one, Sophia will be going to 5th grade and you will be going to daycare. The third one would be Sophia would know everything you learned in school and you will be back to knowing what a preschooler knows. Julienne kept listing the betting stakes. In the end, Jay would end up being a little toddler. He wouldn't even be able to open the door of his own house, which had child safety locks, and all his friends would be 4-year-olds. Got that? Is it a bet? Jay realized that he would lose so much. Being treated like an 11-year-old wasn't great. While he did have a lot of fun and he didn't have any problems with Marcia about going to bed and things like that. But did he really want to be a little toddler in everything but body? Jay won what Sophia's live was. He heard what she did at daycare. He knew she was watched like she could hurt herself at any moment. Marcia personally bathed the girl every night. She couldn't read and couldn't even count to 10. She couldn't even play a simple game of Clue, which started all this. She had enough trouble playing Candyland. That would be his life if he lost the bet. Jay decided he didn't want to risk it on one toss of a coin. No, he said quietly. What did you say? I said no, no bet. Are you sure? I think I am. This will be your only chance. I'm leaving tomorrow. I have to be at work Monday. Julienne didn't mention that she had a date with her girlfriend on Friday night. I don't think I could handle being a baby if I lost, Jay admitted. Okay then, how about one last game of Clue before I go? Epilogue 3 years later, Jay got out of bed in the morning. He was still clutching Chubby Bunny when he woke up. He didn't have to be woken up, he was on a schedule and followed it to the letter. He was never getting ready for school. He hopped out of bed as he was well rested, being to bed on time the night before as he had always been for 3 years straight. He walked over to the bathroom, peed, brushed his teeth and brushed his hair, 50 strokes at least. His hair was still receded in the front, but had grown long in the back. It was long enough to touch his shoulders but not much farther. It was shiny as he washed and conditioned it every night before going to bed in his nightly showers. Looking in his drawers, he picked out a pair of panties and a training bra. He wore a training bra every day even though he didn't need one. It was natural for him to wear one even though his chest hadn't developed and would never develop. Then he found a pair of leggings and coordinated it with a nice top. He wore leggings 5 days or more a week. He loved leggings, they were so cute and he loved how they made his legs feel, they were so soft. On occasion he would wear a skirt or a pair of slacks or maybe a romper, but leggings were definitely his favorite. Once dressed, he slipped on his ballet flats and was ready to greet the day. He grabbed his book bag and bounded down to the kitchen for breakfast. Sometimes he beat Dylan down there, sometimes he didn't. Marcia made his breakfast whatever it was, then he went to school. Marcia was almost always naked in the morning unless it was very cold outside and chilly in the house. Jimmy had left early this morning. He got a run in his gray pantyhose and had to buy some more before going to work. It was the only kind that went with the cocktail dress he was wearing. Today he wore a strapless number with a short skirt and a corseted waistline with sequins on the bodice. The pantyhose was what he hated most about his job. He hated it even more than his heels. His heels made him stand over 5'10", which he liked. He wished he could wear some tights instead, but that wasn't professional enough, or so he thought. Sure, pantyhose was what was required, but in the end, for the money they were paying him, he supposed it was worth it. Jay was still in the 5th grade. Every September his new class would be in the 5th grade, the same as the spring before. Mr. Kern had been his teacher twice in the last 3 years, but this year it was Mrs. Santos. Dylan was in college now. He was majoring in dance and had lost a lot of weight, but he was one of the top ballerinas at his school, always bagging the lead role. Sophia was attending the same school as Jay in the 2nd grade. Dylan had to drive Sophia and Jay the distance to their school. Jay wasn't allowed to go by himself, and certainly not with Sophia alone. A responsible adult had to take them. At school, he greeted his friends, most of whom were in his grade is not his class. They were almost always girls about 11 years old. Liz and her friends had moved on. They were in middle school now and would be going to high school next year. Jay saw them in the neighborhood, but they were no longer friends. Jay was now friends with some of her former friends' younger sisters now. When the school bell rang, Jay would take his seat and do the do now like the rest of the class. He knew the work as well as anyone in the 5th grade, quite honestly as well as anyone in the 6th grade, but he was never promoted. When Julianne made the bet, she bet that Jay would take over her classes, and she had been in the 5th grade then. When she got Jay's education, she never needed to attend any other grades, thus Jay would always attend only the 5th grade. He would also never be able to vote, drive a car, buy alcohol, or even see PG-13 rated movies without a parent or guardian. Once he finished the do now, Jay noticed Evan. Evan was Jay's latest crush, although she hardly ever talked to him. She admired him from afar, hoping that Evan would ask him out, whatever that meant for a preteen. Jay's crushes never asked him out, they were just too young to care. Jay would crush on a boy for about 2 or 3 months, imagining that they were dating if he just happened to say hi or had any interaction, and then move on to the next boy. It was quite innocent for both of them. His best friends usually knew which boy he was crushing upon. Some of them had crushes too. Girls, it seemed, matured faster than boys. When Mrs. Santos asked for volunteers to show their homework, Jay's hand immediately went up. He was called upon and showed his work on the board. He got it right and was proud of his work. In general, Jay was happy. He was smart, for a 5th grader, and popular, at least with the girls in his grade. He might run for class president this year, and rarely gave Marcia and Jimmy any trouble at home, certainly not any problem when it came to bedtime or getting ready for school. What more could he ask for? In the middle of the night, Jay woke up from his nightmare. He had been stuck as a 5th grader for several years in his dream. He didn't remember how many years in his dream, but it didn't matter. It couldn't be possible to stay this way forever. He would have to grow up. But what would he grow up as? Would he become a woman or become a man? Physically, right now, he was a man. He was in fact a man in his 30s, but he had been living the life suited for a preteen girl. Every school day he attended 5th grade. All his friends were middle school girls, and even though Marcia and Jimmy weren't really his parents, they treated him like he was their little girl. Jay liked his friends, Liz, and all the girls at school. He was happy when he was around them, but he knew it wasn't right. Even though it didn't feel wrong to be around them, he knew at some level it was wrong. There were also boys at school who he liked. He didn't mean like, but he meant like. He watched them and hoped they would talk to him. But these boys didn't really talk to girls, and they pretty much didn't talk to him either. It was more likely they would hit or insult him than to talk nice to him. Jay didn't mind though. The little 11-year-olds couldn't hurt a man like him, and in some ways being insulted was better than being ignored by the boy he liked. Not that he wouldn't insult the boy right back. Jay sometimes told his friends that he liked this boy or that. He had moved on from his crush for Anton when he found out that he had asked another girl to play. Jay cried his eyes out that night. Their reactions were mixed, as some had crushed too and others did not. Jay was thinking about telling Marcia that she liked a boy. They had grown closer over the last few months. She liked that he was finally listening to her and following her rules. He was always in bed at the right time and always did his homework. She showed her appreciation by getting Jay gifts, mostly clothes, and teaching him how to properly put on his makeup. He had become more advanced in the makeup arts than most of the girls in his grade. Jay's relationship with his family was in a sense strange. He was still Marcia's cousin, but she treated him like her daughter. Jay was at once older and bigger than Dylan, but he was also just in the 5th grade and Dylan was in high school. Jay also enjoyed playing with Sophia more than hanging out with Dylan. This was especially true when it came to playing dress-up. Sophia loved to try on Jay's clothes. The cheater's stone left Jay feeling incomplete. He was neither a grown man nor a teen girl. He was somewhere in between. He had to make Julienne make one more swap no matter how it turned out. He didn't care if he would be reduced to a thumb-sucking little girl in daycare, he couldn't stay as he is. He had to make a bet that in the end would make him a complete girl or return to being a grown man. Not that he really knew what being a grown man was anymore. Health, or as it is usually called sex education, wasn't for another 2 years in 7th grade. He didn't really know what sex was anymore nor really the mechanics of where babies came from. Jay knew he had to do something. It couldn't stay like this forever. He found Rabbit, who was lying next to him on his bed, clutched him tightly and went back to sleep. In the morning, Jay woke up resolved to return to normal. It had been several months since the swap and Jay's morning rituals was fully ingrained in his psyche. He probably wouldn't miss them, although, it's not like he would stop brushing his teeth or taking a shower in the morning. What he would miss was all his cool clothes. He had grown to enjoy getting dressed in his own style. He liked clothes that were bright and fun. Today he's going to wear his blue and white striped top. It has hearts in a hot pink color that match his pink leggings and a round neck with a drawstring at the waist. He always put a pretty bow in the drawstring. Because as he thinks, what's the point in having a drawstring if you don't tie it into a pretty bow? He wears it with sneakers with no-show socks. He used to think that he was too cool for sneakers, but now they are just part of his wardrobe. Just another fashion accessory, no different than his shoes with a small heel. He even liked making up his face with a little bit of blush and lipstick in the morning. As a matter of fact, just last week his hair had grown long enough for it to be styled at a real salon. He could even put bows and ribbons in his hair, which he also liked. Despite all this, he knew he couldn't stay this way. He was the only girl in the 5th grade who had to shave his face every day. He also shaved his legs and armpits a little less often. Julienne had similar concerns. She might have Jay's dating life, but physically she was a little girl. She didn't even have any hair on her privates and her boobs were little more than puffy nipples. Her boobs have definitely expanded in the months since the swap. Julienne wondered if she could finally fill out a real bra. She didn't have a cup boobs yet, but maybe she had grown into a AA. The women she dated didn't seem to mind though, they thought of her as if she was a grown man like Jay. This included people that hadn't known Jay before the swaps. Julienne could do Jay's work. It was fun for a while, but then it became just as much a drag as any other job. She didn't swap the passion that Jay had for his profession. Julienne went to a bar once and ordered a drink. She didn't like the taste though. She did like pina coladas though. But her friends and dates kidded her when she ordered one, especially when she ordered it virgin. Her body couldn't handle alcohol anywhere near as well as Jay had. She weighed over 100 pounds less than he did. Being an adult, or at least treated as an adult, wasn't as fun as she thought it would be. Julienne also missed her mom. Even her mom's nagging. Julienne got into more trouble by sleeping late now that she was perceived as an adult than she did when she was perceived as a kid. The freedom of adulthood had the price of the responsibilities of adulthood. Responsibilities she wasn't ready for. In many ways, she still had the maturity of a girl. Julienne was like Jay, caught in the middle. She wasn't truly an adult and she wasn't truly a kid. She wasn't truly a man and she wasn't truly a girl. She needed for the thing to be resolved one way or the other. Either she had to be a man in every way or return to her old life. Julianne went to Jay's school and picked him up after classes ended. Jay was walking towards home with one of his friends, Cheryl. It was a girl in Julianne's former class that Julianne hadn't been too friendly with before the swap. But Jay had developed a friendship with her that Julianne never had. You might even call them BFFs. Get into the car, Jay. We have to talk, Julianne told him. Jay didn't have to be asked twice. Who is this, Jay? Cheryl asked. Don't worry. Julianne is my cousin. I'll be fine. Julianne and Jay drove off and parked in a secluded spot. I think it's time to swap back, Julianne said. I think you are right. How do we do that? We need one last bet from the cheater's stone. Yeah, one that you are sure to lose. It doesn't work like that. You can't cheat the cheater's stone. It has to be a real bet. It does? Yeah. What happens if it's not? Well, then it punishes you. How does it do that? You probably haven't noticed, but my family hasn't always been how they are. They seem okay to me. They aren't. I don't want to go into it, but they aren't as they seem. I'm not even sure if I know all the changes. Your family has changed? It doesn't matter. The point is we have to make a real bet and let the chips fall where they may. What should we do? It has to be a coin flip. There is no way to cheat upon that. Okay, so if I win, I get everything back. What if I lose? I don't know. After a few moments of thought, Jay suggested, I have an idea. What? If I lose, then we complete the changes. What do you mean? I mean there has to be 8 things. So if I lose, one of the things we swap will be names, so I'll truly be Julianne. So what? The second thing will be bodies, so I'll be an 11-year-old girl physically. I think I get it. The third thing will be place in the family and society. So I'll be Marcia's daughter and Sophia's sister, etc., and I'll be just another girl in the 5th grade. Uh-huh. Can you think of anything else? Well, we should swap maturity and psychology. That will be 4 and 5. How about memories next? That is 6. Now 2 more to finish it off. It was getting harder and harder to come up with the proper thing to swap. But Julianne found the last 2 to finish off the bet. How about our preferences? You know, like likes and dislikes and stuff like that. The final swap is everything else that we haven't swapped already? Everything else is a perfect last choice. But all the other swaps have to be of things that haven't been swapped yet. I mean, I like things now, like clothes that I didn't before. You are right, we'll make that part of the list. You think the cheater's stone will allow this? I mean, it's sort of like heads I win and tails you lose. Either I'll be back to be the Jay I always was, or I will be exactly how you were meant to be. I think it'll work. I don't see why not. But what if it doesn't? Can we stay like this? I guess not. We have to do this. Julianne got one of the coins she kept in the car. They left the car as they needed a solid surface to flip the coin. Do you have any preference? What? Do you want heads or tails? Does it make a difference? I don't know, but for it to be a bet we have to make a choice. I'll flip so you have to choose a side. Tails, I guess. Okay, you win with tails. Are you ready? While they were deciding upon a course of action, Jay's BFFs was rounding the corner. They parked on the way to her house. I'm as ready as I'll ever be. I guess I am too. Julienne put the coin on her pointer finger with her thumb right under it, ready to flip the coin in the air. So now it's time for the actual bet. If I win, I get everything back, and if you win, we swap names, places in the family and society, bodies, psychology, maturity, memories, preferences, and everything else. Hey, what are you doing? Cheryl shouted when she was them. Julienne was startled as she propelled the coin into the air.